advocacy group joining us now. I'm not sure, and James and Ron are still with us, I'm not sure, Erica, that he's actually right on that, and here's why. Today's drop didn't have much to do with anything that happened here. We had French banks in trouble because of rumors that were swirling about their capital requirements and their ability to really stand on their own 2 feet. And then we had worries about whether France would lose its AAA rating status, which of course didn't happen. So I'm not sure that it's fair to really bring up the fact that the United States is somehow in total and utter disarray when other countries are too.
I mean, I think that just because everybody is in disarray doesn't mean that we're not in disarray. And I would argue that today's actions and actions of this week that the stock market took is really because this foundation, you know, we've got termites in the house basically, so the whole thing is in the process of falling in on itself. And the political process that was highlighted in the S&P report that downgraded the U.S. credit worthiness, they said specifically the political process is a problem. And so you're just seeing the continuing effects of that. Are there other problems that are leading to this today? Absolutely. But I mean, you've got termites in your house.
Absolutely. Nobody's denying that. But when it comes to an actual AAA rating, it really, and I don't want to argue about this, it's a 4-day-old story now coming off of last Friday, but look at what S&P said. Our bond obligations will be fulfilled, as Warren Buffett told Fox Business earlier this week. And if you're looking purely at that, fine. But they're weighing in something that is sort of less tangible and amorphous, the political process here. The political process in Europe is certainly something that people are watching as well, especially considering you have near mayhem when you've got Germany that says, why are we helping countries that weren't fiscally responsible?
Well, you know, the political process is typically amorphous. You were right about that. One of the things that the S&P said in their report is that at this moment it's not particularly amorphous. Their assumption in downgrading their base and their downside scenario was that the Bush tax cuts were going to be permanent and that the political process had no room in which to make that flexible. So yes, typically the political process is a back and forth. I like to think of it as a seesaw. Let's get a heavy kid on this side and a heavy kid on this side. And if they're sort of equally weighted, the marble in the middle will be a reasonable place. But what the S&P has said in this instance is, you know, this Tea Party Republican Congress is not moving, and it's problematic for the long-term fiscal health of the country. So what usually is an amorphous political system is currently not.
Okay. But looking at our futures right now, we could throw them up once again because we look like, if we were to open right now, as if we would move higher because the Dow futures are up about 68 points. S&P, there's a little more heft to S&P futures when you see them up 6. That gives it a little more added oomph. But look, overall, do you think in a way that all of this turmoil in the S&P downgrade may be a really important and crucial wake-up call that gets Republicans and Democrats a little bit closer together? Or, no, you're shaking your head. I'm so naive.
No,
I really am a centrist. I would really love for both sides to get together and compromise.
I'll tell you this. If President Obama's approval ratings were higher, if he had taken some different steps in this process, right, I think that you would see some movement from the Tea Party. You're not going to see movement from the Tea Party because they see a political advantage. And what they've done in the Wisconsin vote last night didn't really help. So they're continuing to hear reinforcement for their unbelievably reckless and irresponsible choices.
Well, they would
and
argue,
they're going to continue on that road. And frankly, none of them have any economic sense and have any idea what they're actually talking about. So they're willing to stick with the talking points and do whatever they want to do, regardless of how destructive it is for the country.
Well, they would argue that it's not political, that they really feel that we do need to stop spending as much.
Right.
There are a lot of people who would argue. Let's bring
and
back
feeling
James.
Something is not a great way to make public policy. Well, a great way to make public policy is to actually think through the choices you're making, have some smart people come to the table and talk about it. And the Tea Party Republicans feeling like we're making bad choices is not a very good way to run a country.
James Glassman, we can't just keep on this track of spending that much, and now it's really starting to weigh on our markets. Again, I stress that today much of it was driven by stuff that was happening in France and not here, but the past couple of days is clearly an issue of stress on the markets. And I would also like to point out to our viewers, intraday, the U.S. dollar hit post-World War II lows. That's never a good sign, is it, James?
No, it's not. But let me just say that right now we're spending 24% of our gross domestic product. That's what the government is spending, the federal government alone. That's unprecedented in American history. So I think the Tea Party has a really good point. What we're seeing in Washington is differences on how to solve our fiscal problems. And usually when that happens, we see leadership from the White House, and that leadership tends to resolve the differences. And I'm not going to be critical of President Obama, but a lot of other people that you would think would be supportive of him have been critical of him. And I think that's weighing on the market as well. But the main thing that's weighing on the market is the realization by investors that the United States is not going to grow at 3% this year or 3.5% next year as the original projections foresaw.
Okay.
I mean, the fact is we are in a very
I
stagnant economy.
would challenge you actually to go back and look at your history books. You brought up World War II. If you look at what World War II was after the crash in 1929, World War II was a massive spending program that put Americans back to work.
Okay.
So, and we did spend more than we are spending right now. So that's actually
Right.
factually,
Well,
that is factually inaccurate. If you're going to come in here and quote history, you should read your history books before you come in. Just to be clear, let's have a fact-based argument.
I don't think the solution to our current problem is to have a gigantic world war in which 300,000 Americans were killed.
I think what my main solution is government investment in our infrastructure.
We got to wrap right there.
It's not a
Time for you
solution.
to weigh in. Hold on. Time for you to weigh in.